It's time to hammer.
Now I gotta really try hard.
Shut it down! Somehow it's the best.
Neon Chunks Podcast.
Yum chunks!
Haunting of Hill House. I nailed it. I got it that time.
Sean, there's a secret ghost behind you.
Oh my god, hidden Easter egg.
A secret ghost?
A secret
Aren't all
ghost.
ghosts secret? I mean, that's kind of what they're saying.
I mean, not always. What about that Casey Affleck ghost?
Dude, if you're Rooney Mara, you eat pies. Yeah,
did you guys see that?
I have not seen it, but I heard it's really good.
A ghost story?
Did
I watched it.
did you love that scene where she eats pie for literally 10 minutes straight on camera, and then I don't no spoilers, but that was the best scene of any film I've ever seen.
It's a very slow burn movie.
Well, we know Kristen liked it because it was pie.
You've never seen a film like that. Well, yeah, Chris definitely hated this film, but
it was cringeworthy. It was what? No.
But man, if you enjoy people
it.
eating pie, I cannot give you a higher recommendation than this movie.
Also, apropos for our Halloween episode, Ghost Story.
Yeah, Ghost Story.
Scares the sheets right out of me.
Womp womp. So Hill's house. Oh yeah, we didn't really say it, but there was a spoiler for Castlevania. I don't even think we talked about spoilers. They fight vampires. If you didn't know that, that's what the show's about. So there you go. But spoiler warning for Haunted Hill House. I think we will say spoilers on this. So this is a real spoiler thing if you plan on watching the show. Which I believe we all will recommend you do.
Oh my god, I love this freaking show.
Well, we will recommend, but yeah, if you plan on watching the show, please don't spoil yourself, because this is a show worthy of saving the spoilers.
Yes, agreed. Very much so. It's a little bit. Well, I finished this like 2 weeks ago now. So a lot of the stuff, I have notes and everything, but the raw emotional visceral reaction to a lot of it is not as fresh. So I will try to conjure as much as I can. It's a shame that we're doing the episode on it now, but don't let that detract from the quality of it. I love this show. This was, I don't know if it's my favorite show this year, but it might be. Yeah, maybe it is. I don't know.
I mean, it makes a strong case for itself, for sure.
I would agree with that statement. I mean, maybe at the end of the year we'll do a little 2018 wrap up.
I like it.
This will make the list.
Yes. It's probably the most consistently scary, spookiest thing also that I have watched in a while, especially for TV.
So this is from the guy that made Oculus,
and it's funny,
which this show, the way he scares you in the show is very similar to the Oculus scares. Sure. It's not like your traditional horror movie, right? It's like he likes to just let things happen. Not really any toaster moments or popping.
There are toaster moments. There are.
I said not really, meaning there are some.
Okay. I mean, we know what you meant, but it also is your phrasing. Okay, there's not many. How about there's not many?
Okay. Yeah, but I forgot where I was going. But yeah, no, it's very psychological. It's very psychological kind of, because they do think, and he even does like psych outs, right? He does psych outs really well, where kind of like what James Wan does in his movies, right? Where like, if you remember The Conjuring, where they're all in bed and they're just like, look in the corner, right? And the camera's just like focused on that corner, and you as a viewer are like, what the hell is in that corner? And there's nothing there, right? And you're just like, oh my god. I felt that way a lot with a lot of the scares in this one, where you just totally got it in your own head.
Yeah, and one thing I will say about the few toaster moments that there are in the film, they didn't hit me the way most scary moments will in the theater, where I will, they'll pop up, and then I'll jerk back, and I'll it more like
The car one got me. The car one got me.
Well,
that one,
actually the one
I
I
was
was
just
gonna
like,
say.
oh my
The car
god.
one was the worst one. But it was more like I'm frozen, and then just like chills come from all the way from my head all the way down my body, and I'm just like this frozen cold chill of terror versus like a heightened reaction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like I think I'm trying to remember the first part of the first episode, but I know really quickly I was like, "Oh no, what have I started?"
So yeah, it started with the girl in her bed,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
Screaming.
that's right, okay.
The dad coming in, the bent neck lady.
Yeah, that's right. And even then, there is something you see in that first scene, but it's not a toaster scare. It's not a jump scare per se.
Oh no, she totally just materializes very slowly in front of you, and you're just like, no, stop, go back, go back to where you're from.
And it does a good job of just like, well, because okay, so there's constantly switching back between the past and the present and stuff, but just like that feeling of dread, and it ties in thematically and everything too, but just like is so consistent between the two time zones. It's not like you're in the present and you're safe and everything's fine because you're an adult now, and nope, it's just as freaky and scary, sometimes more so, like in certain scenes, than as when they're kids. Like some of the stuff like in the mortuary, in the funeral home, like, why no one should have that job. I don't feel bad for anyone who has to do that for their job, but like all of those scenes, but just everything, like all the Luke stuff. I'm trying to think what the scariest episode was, and I think for me the scariest was probably episode 5, the Nell kind of focused episode.
Yeah, 5 is my favorite by far.
Really?
Yeah.
I would probably say the I think episode 6, the funeral home, the long shot one, the one that focused on.
Yeah.
I think that might be my favorite, but I don't think it's the scariest.
No,
I think
it's definitely not the scariest. But man, that's definitely my favorite. So well crafted, like the transition, the set swapping that happened, and they never cut.
Yeah.
Like, and the time traveling, it was just like, oh my god.
I think that show. So I will say, I don't know what you guys felt, but I felt like the first half of the season was much like scarier than the second half.
Oh yeah,
and I don't mean that as a criticism.
I think it was the Nell episode, right?
That's
the moment you found out what the bent neck lady was.
Yeah.
That's when it became way more rational, right? Because
it became way more rational. And
I mean, did you guys also? So when I saw that, I started trying to apply that to everybody. I was just like, like the tall guy, like when he was a kid, but when he was back to back as an adult, Luke looked about that height. So I was like,
same
like
height,
what?
yeah.
Right? Like I started like applying or trying to apply that to things.
I didn't try to apply like specifically like they were each their own ghost or whatever, but I was trying to apply kind of like each one had their own ghost, right? Each one had their own thing that was haunting them, and that was pretty clear. I mean,
it felt a little like a Cabin in the Woods, right? Where it's like choose your own tormentor.
That was kind of funny.
I choose the bolo hat, man.
But I think the episode 6 really kind of like cemented the transition from like this really scary show that was primarily a scary show with really good characters and story and all this stuff with the awesome setting, blah, blah, blah. And the scariness kind of took a back seat in the second half of the show where the characters really became the focal point. I mean, they were always obviously to an extent, but like, and for me anyway, I became much more, I don't know how to say this, I guess empathetic or much more attuned to their shoes. Like I was used to the ghosts at that point. Like to me, the ghosts were still there. All of the scenes were pretty much the same type of setup, but it's like you almost feel like you're those characters at that point because you're so used to it. It's just like it's not as scary anymore. Like this is just what they've been living with and how they've had to deal with their lives. And it's less about the scare and it's more about the trauma that imposes upon them. And you're kind of acclimated to that by the second half of the season. And the episode 6 was great. I love the shot where like they pan and it's all of the family staring at the coffin with Nell in it, and then she's in the background with them standing there. Like oh, that shot is so perfect. And she's not an obvious, like you don't even maybe notice her at first. She's not a hidden ghost. She's not like a secret ghost because she's clearly visible, but it's like, she's not scary. It's not intended for that ghost to be a scary ghost at this moment. She's gruesome and her neck's bent, and it's like, but it's not a scare. It's like, she's a character now, and she's part of that family now. Like, I don't know. It's hard to describe, but like, it's so brilliant in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think going towards your point about the characters kind of taking over from the story being the main driving force, or I don't know if that's what you're getting at, but that's what I felt.
Yeah.
And I think that really hits home after episode 5, probably because I think episode 5 is a major like hammer drop, or whatever. And then episode 6 leads us into that character's death, right? And we're put in these scenes with the characters themselves, and they're having to grieve. And I think the film, this is one example of where the filming style really brings the audience into the scenes by not cutting and really just kind of bringing us into their drama. I think that the actors have to be a little more raw. I think that shows in not necessarily always a good way, but also a good way because it is raw. So I don't know. I feel like it for me. I felt more connected with the characters in a very like visceral sense that they weren't. I don't know. They weren't reading a script.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I felt like from that point on, kind of as you were saying, Sean, we're having to experience this main character's death with this family, and I think that brings us into the family, and we care about these characters more than we do the story that's led them to here.
Yeah, exactly.
The story's, I think the story, we have to get through this, right? It has to end, and we have to get somewhere. But now we're invested in the characters. That's why we're going to keep watching. Yeah. And there's been a lot of great television shows throughout television history, that have been, story-driven, character-driven. But I think, this short little snippet of, cinematic greatness has really, I don't know, I think it's done for me the best job of achieving that kind of hard to capture essence or whatever of a character's, really driving a story forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, like, we both kind of talked about how like the characters kind of take the focal point, over to an extent the plot. Like, I think a lot of these shows, but shows like this that are somewhat like there's a mystery-ish air to them. And you as a viewer, you're like, ooh, what does this mean? And what is this? I'm trying to solve this and figure this out. And I think that kind of encapsulates to an extent too. In the first half, you're a little more concerned with that. I feel, at least I was like, oh, what did this mean? Or when that shot as a kid, what did that imply? Or who is this character and stuff? But by the second half of the show, there are still lingering questions for sure. But you don't care as much about that stuff anymore. Like, it's like, I don't really care who that ghost is. That I want to know how Luke, like, what happens to Luke? Or,
right.
How are these characters going to resolve this? But then they do a pretty good job of actually
answering those questions.
Answering a lot of those questions, but they're not answered in, like, a surprise twist. This was this. No. There's a few things that are kind of like that, but they're also not delivered in a way to be like, bum, 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 it was this girl the whole time. Like, most of the stuff, if you were observant, you could kind of see a lot of it coming by episodes 7, 8, and 9. Like, for example, for me anyway, like, the little Abby girl, like, I kind of saw that coming, that it was their daughter, the housekeeper's daughter.
Oh, yeah.
But it doesn't detract from anything. Like, that didn't diminish anything. It was still just, like... But other than that, like, there wasn't a lot, like, we didn't need to know who some old man with a top hat was. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
Like...
Well, they do tell us who he was.
Well, he's just some creepy guy. Who was he? He was...
Yeah, no, he was part of the family. I see it like...
Well, yeah, he was the guy who lived there.
Well, he was the one that they found behind the brick wall in the basement.
Oh, that's right. He was... Was that him?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was him. Okay.
Like,
that's right.
It was that's stuff that I really liked. I mean, I liked everything, but like I
Mhm.
liked how it was just like one-offs, right? It was just like you could blink and you could essentially miss something like that, but it's not like super important, right? It's just
Yeah.
like a little
Right.
bit extra. Where it's just like I believe they explained just about everybody in that died that was like haunting around.
Yeah.
Like they explained all the major ones.
Yeah, all the major ones, I suppose. I guess maybe what I'm saying is that there wasn't some big mystery. Like,
No. I mean,
Yeah,
I agree. So one thing I
makes
found
sense.
really interesting about the ending itself was the fact that it also tries. So the big bad is just the house, right? The house is
Right.
this entity for whatever reason,
yeah,
but I love that in the final episode, the show makes a case for why it's not just like it's good too, right? Like it's not just evil, it's good. It kind of grants wishes in a sense, right? And it allows people to stay with their loved ones, and at the end you see like the mom as she's passing away due to old age is like, okay, now you can spend the rest of your life with your daughter and your unborn, your stillborn baby or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Like I love that it tried to sit there and be like, yeah, this thing's evil, right? It drives people to madness and kill themselves so it can feed or whatever, right?
Mhm.
But at the same time, there's a lot of good to be had from it.
Well, I think it kind of like, I think a lot of these things you could kind of go over in a lot of ways in terms of thematically and kind of what it means as a representation of like grief, right? And just like trauma. And like, obviously those things are all bad and no one wants that, but ultimately everyone has to face it. And it's more about like, there may be opportunities of things that are good to be found, or, you know, or benefits or ways to grow or ways to bond from these traumas, even though the trauma itself is evil or whatever. You know, it allows us to become better or become, you know, stronger because of it. And I think that one of the scenes, I think maybe my favorite in terms of the kind of pathos of the show, because obviously it's just a really emotional show too. And I think maybe that's probably why so many people kind of have bonded to it. Because if it was just like the scariness and the spookiness and the kind of plot and even the character stuff, it would be great. But I think the way they are able to kind of transcend it with just the pathos, just the pure raw emotion. But my favorite scene wasn't the last part of the last episode, but when all the siblings are trapped in the room with Nell and she's like visible to them,
Yeah.
and she's like talking to them and she's like forgiving them, and just like, to me that was like yeah, just like I can't, like, in tears just like watching, like, but it's like a ghost talking to these characters. It's just like, so, and it wasn't the climax of the show. It wasn't like, you know, like it was just like the scene kind of right in the middle near the end as everything's kind of getting resolved and there's still some rising action to have and stuff. But it was just like such a powerful, just like beautiful way they did all that. And I don't even remember specifically what she said. There was a couple things that she kind of lines that she had that I thought just like were so poignant. And they talked about wishes, and there was a way they phrased that I thought was really great. And I can't remember it. Do you remember that, what I'm talking about? What they said a wish was? A wish is just or something like that.
A wish is a dream your heart makes.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. They don't say that, but it's something like that. And it's like, oh yeah, it's like a dream is just a wish, or I can't remember what, I don't know. It sounds even silly. If you don't know what I'm talking about, like you think, oh, what is he? It sounds stupid.
Yeah.
It's not stupid. Look it up.
Well, anyway, yeah, that whole sequence was,
Sorry.
yeah, in a way, maybe like the characters'
Yeah.
the climax, if not, you know, it's not the
Yeah.
climax of the story, but because each character has to overcome their weakness or whatever, you know, they have to, and this, like, the way they structured that whole sequence, because it starts off with, what's the character, the boy's name?
Luke?
No, the
Steven?
other one. Steven, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it starts off with him, and you're kind of like, huh, this is a little suspicious. But, all right, I guess they're doing a little time jump here. Okay, nope. All right, here's what's happening, and then it kind of snowballs from there. And it really, because we've gone through this, like, you know, I kind of already brought this up, but yeah, we've gone through this journey with these characters, and it's very fulfilling to see them fail but also overcome, whatever's been plaguing them their whole life outside of, ghosts.
Yeah. And
it's a little unfair to Luke, I gotta say. Like, I mean, he gets a lot of grief, but man, he's had ghosts haunting him. Cut him some slack.
Beat up the most, I feel.
Yeah.
He gets the worst of it.
Yeah.
He was probably one of the better performers in the show too.
I think they did a really good job of like transitioning him from when he's like, because he's a good-looking guy, but then when he's on drugs and just like, oh man,
yeah,
right, like, so I think that helped a lot.
Rough.
But yeah. Did you guys have a favorite character? Who was your favorite character?
I can tell you who my least favorite character was.
Cheryl? Was it Cheryl?
Yep.
Like, I feel bad, but I do think that I do not like her. I did like her. I did like her resolution. I was like, okay.
Yeah, when they kind of explain it, and you're just like, okay, I see what they're doing with her, right? Like,
yeah.
But up until then, I'm like, oh god, what a B.
Yeah.
No, she's the worst for sure. She's the worst.
I mean, I guess I really like. I don't know. Maybe it's between like Steven and the dad. I kind of like the dad because he never let anything get to him, right? Like that sense of just like calm. He's like, I need to protect my family. Like even at the end, right, when they go back into the house, like, and like Steven's just like kind of a little shell shocked, right? You can see it in his eyes, but the dad is just like super calm, right? He's just like, don't acknowledge it. It'll pass. We'll move on, right? Like he's super calm. He knew what he was doing, right? Like, I don't know. I felt like that was a good mix with everything going on to have a character like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I would kind of maybe equate him to like a soldier where he is shell shocked, right? I mean, he does let it get to him, right? He's the death of his wife kind of, I mean, it essentially ruins and traumatizes his adult life. But you're right. He does kind of keep that laser focus because he's a taskmaster or whatever. Like he is driven by duty, and I have something I need to accomplish. I have something I can fix. I will stay laser focused on that because of my family, because of my children, etc.
Yeah, like all of the kids, like, and he kind of instilled this, right? They all had like a sort of fear of that house. But he was the one that never feared it, right? Well, I mean, he feared it underneath. He never visibly showed, I think, ever that he actually feared the house because he was strong for everybody. He's just like, I know,
right?
I kind of understand what happened, right? Not entirely because there's no understanding it, but like he's like, I understand why this happened to a degree. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, like it's, I don't know. He was kind of, he was like the Warrens from The Conjuring. He was the one that was just like, I don't care. I'm just gonna do it.
Did anyone else think it was a little, I don't know, weird, but that they had two different actors for the dad? Because the dad, when they were kids, was already like kind of like he's the kid from E.T. I don't know if you guys knew that.
No,
I did notice that. Actually, I recognized him. I'm like, is that? Wait, is his name Elliot?
Well, his character is, but
show.
What's his character in? Yeah, what is his show in a haunted house?
Dad.
Like Jack.
In any case,
Jack?
But that actor must be in his 40s, probably. I would imagine at least. So they could have easily made him look like 15 years older to be an older version of himself. Like,
I thought that too. It seemed a little bit odd.
Anyway, I mean, it's a minor thing, but I just thought it was kind of funny. No, you look too young. You can only play up to 45. You can't play older than that. No one will buy it.
They probably just wanted to keep the two timelines very straight.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
But maybe.
But then they do pull that little trick on you at the end, right? Where he walks out and he's still old, but when he walks back in, he's young again. Like they do the cut. And he's just like, ha!
Gotcha.
I mean, you already knew I was going to die, but here I am dead.
Okay. I think my favorite character was Theo.
I did like Theo a lot.
I think she's the
Yeah.
hardest to love, or I don't know. Well, besides,
Yes.
I mean, besides
I mean,
Shell.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
I
Plus,
like Theo a
also
lot.
liked. Or sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna. I like Theo a lot. I think I was hoping for a little bit more resolution on her character. Not, I don't know.
Yeah.
She was resolved. I just maybe a little bit more time with her at the end. Maybe.
Do you think she maintains her X-Men powers at the end?
Yeah,
I think so.
Okay, I was just curious.
Because I mean, they all kind of have some sort of force sensitivity, right?
I kind of got that.
I guess
too.
everybody
Like,
but Steve, right?
well, I don't know. That's what I was
Because
thinking.
doesn't
Is
I
the-
think he
does
repressed
he?
his. I think
Well,
he's like,
I mean,
yeah.
maybe I don't know. It seemed like
I
the
think
dad
that's what it is,
pointed
because-
out that he was not observant of it, right? That was like
No, well, I think he was the most. He says it's the most dangerous for you because basically,
you're being an
I
idiot
mean-
and ignoring it, right? Because he
well,
brings.
but I don't think he's being an idiot. I think he literally like. To an extent, it was a defense mechanism. Like all of them, to an extent, are kind of exhibiting some sort of defense
I
mechanism.
mean, I guess
like,
maybe,
right.
but his example it was from his book, right? He was like, "Oh,
Mhm.
I remember it's this specific part in the book that you wrote about when you were going up the stairs or whatever, and you passed the old timey clock man with the mustache. I would never
Mhm.
hire a man with a mustache." And it's right. It's just like there was no reason for him to put that in the book if he was repressing it, right? It was more of like he just didn't know then that that's what that was.
Well, I suppose I mean maybe again I don't think it's a pure X-Men power, but it is. I think he was just more prone to. He probably saw more than the rest of them did. He just didn't realize it. I think that's kind of what they were getting at, or that's what the dad was getting at anyway. It was that like you were more exposed to this than anyone. You just didn't even realize it. I think is
Right.
kind of
yeah.
the point.
That's kind of what I got. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I like Theo a lot. I think Stevie maybe is my favorite. He's kind of a jerk sometimes, but at the same time, I don't know. I think partially just because he's the oldest. I suppose there's some empathetic, element to it there. But yeah, I don't know. I liked Nelly a lot though too. I don't know. I liked all of them except Cheryl. No, I like Cheryl.
No one likes Cheryl because she's terrible.
I even like the old lady more than Cheryl.
So
yeah.
I mean, did anybody else think when they introduced strange hippie ghost girl that she was going to be like the main baddie?
Okay, she wasn't a hippie; she was a flapper.
Whatever.
Yeah, I kind of thought she was
'Cause
like, oh,
there
is she
was,
behind
like,
everything?
He met her at the
Right,
insane
is she the big bad?
asylum, and she's
But-
the one that seems to be in fact affecting the mom the most, right? Like maybe she's like the evil ghost of this whole series. Like she's the malevolent force.
But that's what
Well,
I like that she wasn't though. I like that.
Well,
they
no,
made
I
it like
agree.
there was some
I-
evil mastermind.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's like the house can prey more easily upon those that are weak-minded or those that are already insane, right? And then they use those insane minds to further propagate its will, right?
Mhm.
I do like though, like it was cool seeing when the mom came back as a ghost at the end, how like they interact with one another, like the ghost, where she was just like,
Yeah.
"Shut up, move on." He's right. He's my husband. Get out of here. And she's like, "All right."
Yeah. Why? It's
Right.
really a fun house. Season 2. I just want season 2 to be them and all the ghosts in the house. Have a fun old time.
How do they get by day? Just break it down. Ordering a pizza, prank calling pizza boys.
Did you guys actually see any of the hidden ghosts legitimately as you were watching? Because I did not.
No,
and I
did not.
I also did not, but that's primarily because I only actually watched 10% of this show because I was hiding my eyes behind my hands. So everything I've been talking about is purely based on audio.
audio. I don't even know what Luke looks like.
No, I don't either.
I did think that whole. I do think that whole story with like the cats and so it was weird. So what was with the dogs outside? I wonder.
The barking.
Yeah.
There was some things they like kind of hinted at, and again, this is like I was saying. Like I'm not, ultimately, I was never, I wasn't dissatisfied because they didn't answer every single thing. But yeah, the dogs barking. The other thing that was kind of funny I think we talked about this once, Chris, is the first episode they talk about Cheryl sleep talking.
Oh yeah,
Like
that never
pandas
comes
don't
back.
eat macaroni or what?
Yeah,
something like that.
some
Oh, yeah.
asinine.
I was
thing,
like, I was half expecting like the last episode that what's in the red room, and there's just like a panda eating all the macaroni and cheese.
So the reveal of the red room was actually I started to suspect it. I think like the episode before or whatever, right? Like because I think it was the episode where it was Stevie, the mom episode where it was Stevie in the game room, right? And I was just like, wait a second, where are all these rooms?
Well, so yeah, okay. What do you guys think about that? Because at one hand, I feel like it's clever, but on the other hand, like,
It doesn't make any sense.
What question are they answering? Like, we already know that the ghosts can manipulate reality or make noises or do whatever they want. So who cares that it was actually Nell knocking on the door when Theo heard it? You know what I mean? Like, just,
Yeah.
like who? Okay, I mean,
Well, yeah. I mean, I will say that like I thought it was kind of cool that they each had their own rooms, and that works for me. I guess to me, just the red room itself by episode 8, because by then I think you see the mom having the tea, so you already know what happened in the red room, but they still a little bit like what happened that day, and it's like, well, we found out already. So, and there was nothing in that room; it was just a room. So, like, they still kind of try to prolong like what was in the mystery until the very last episode, but I didn't care. Like, I didn't really think there was anything to it at that point. So it was like, I like the idea of them each having their own room and it kind of meaning different thing to different people, but I don't know if it really had a greater meaning than that. I didn't think they needed it to have a greater meaning than that. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I was kind of like, maybe I felt like I was scratching my head, like I missed it. You know, I missed something, or yeah.
Well, and the logistics of it doesn't matter. We shouldn't talk about logistics in a ghost story, but I don't know how. Like, they all have been in that room. How did they get in that room if they don't? Like, how do we unlock the door?
When it was the tree house and Steve went into it, well, Luke was there. How did he get into it from underneath it?
And how it was outside. Like, they did. Like, look at my treehouse I got into by walking down this hallway. Like. Like, you know, we're not supposed to ask. It's dumb to ask questions legitimately about that, but yeah, it does beg some questions. Although not super related. But going back to that episode with the one long shot, the storm part of that really one long shot, that was also amazing and freaking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that was also still the transition from him as a adult going down that hallway in the dark in the funeral home, and then it being because I don't think it cuts until it cuts back to the present after that storm. Yeah, that was bonkers.
So don't go live in weird houses on hills. Is that a thing that really, I guess?
No, it's not. It wasn't on a hill. That was the name of the.
Oh, that was the name.
That was the name of the family that built it.
Oh, that's right.
Which is the real big reveal.
That's.
It wasn't on a hill the entire time.
Did you know the name, the hill in Hill House, is not a physical description of where it was? What? But is that like, who does that?
I'm also glad that they didn't have the housekeepers be like in on some cover up plot too, right?
Yeah,
like,
I kept thinking that because that's such a stereotypical thing to do with these kinds of things.
I like that they were just people. They're like, we know evil crap happens here, but
I do. I like that. I like there's people, but I also just like, dude, if people are murdering people in this house, you should tell people that and like not let them live there. But they got their comeuppance though. Take that, daughter. That's what they get.
Got him. They'll think twice before having a child.
Yeah.
Second child.
I didn't actually fully understand, like, why were they keeping that daughter a secret? Like,
well, they were keeping her a secret because they were afraid because the stillborn had died and they thought it had to do with the house, right? There was like her working there the house was feeding off the baby or whatever, and they were like, no, we can't risk our next child on that.
Oh, okay.
At least that's how I took it.
I mean, they should probably move then too.
Plus, I mean, if you have a stillborn, aren't you naturally going to be a little bit more protective of your next child if it's successful? So
yeah, and I would move.
I wouldn't live next to a murder house. That's for sure.
It's true, but they needed work. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard out there.
And it was interesting because there was lots of shots where just like all the workers around the house. I'm like, oh, it's not scary. Look at all these guys around here.
Yeah.
And then you realize it is scary because there's ghosts still. Anyways, well, yeah. Any other thoughts on haunted houses?
I just want to give one little last mention. I loved episode 5 so much. I already love the show, but it's the episode that, really sold me on it and made me a believer. I don't know. But just the ending of it, the way the whole episode built up and every episode to that point built up, the delivery was it was such a good payoff. And I think it kind of cuts the series in half, so to speak. And the way they filmed those last, I don't know, the last 5 minutes, I guess. I'm trying to avoid too many spoilers, but just the way they filmed her dropping, one time after the other like that and every time that happened, it like sent more shivers through my body, just like I cannot over stress how much of an impact that entire sequence had on my being. It was so well done.
And it culminated, like the first shot of her, when Nellie's a little girl on the couch. Is that from episode 1?
Yeah.
It's not episode. Yeah. So like it goes all the way back to the beginning, right? Like, yeah.
But dude, I was sitting there wide-eyed that whole time that was happening. I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Everything is falling into place. Because, like I said, after that, it became way less
I see
scary.
what you did there, Chris.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it
into place.
Like that whole moment is so intense and scary, and just everything you just said, Ryan. But then it's so brilliant too, because after it, you're strangely not as scared anymore.
Yeah,
because you know what it is.
The key thing is like in that very same episode, right? We get a brand new scare, which is her in that like weird hallway where it was like she went to go to the vending machine or whatever, and then she was coming back out, and the lights were going off, and then the body fell from the ceiling, right? And that was like minutes before we got the resolution to what that was, and it felt so satisfying because it had been built up in the other episodes too, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, I just remembered something. You know what was actually one of the most haunting parts, and it was in that episode too, is right before that, or soon before that sequence, when she checks into the hotel room, where she goes in the room and she sits down at the bed, and there's this transition, and it's like 12 hours later, and it doesn't cut, and it just showed, and she had been sitting on the bed for 12 hours. Like, it sounds like how could that be scary? But like, I remember watching that sequence crazy. And just like chills running through me, where it's just like this weird, unexplainable, just super chilling of just sitting on this bed and this idea of this person being catatonic for 12 hours.
Yeah, well, I mean,
that
coupled with the fact that you knew what she was doing, right? You're like, oh my gosh, she's going back to the house, and she's out of it. She's being freaking stalked like by this ghost. And so do you think the ghost had any, I can't, so was it a coincidence that the ghost was there when the husband died?
So I took it as that like what didn't cause the husband's death, but that the husband dying kind of conjured it emotionally in her, like, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how knowing after the fact, that's what I think of it as. I don't know.
Oh man, you know what I just thought of? I didn't think about this before. The whole reason that she would be catatonic whenever the body was there, the bent neck lady, would be because she was like experiencing that, right? How did I not think of that before?
Oh, like she was like dying in those moments every
Yeah,
single time?
just like her body, right?
Yeah.
She would be limp. She was always like having a hard time breathing, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, you mean when she has sleep paralysis?
yeah.
Oh. What would you guys rather have, sleep paralysis or night terrors?
Well,
Sleep
that's-
paralysis.
Sean, I would like to
clearly.
hear from you as the resident expert.
I have one of my friends, or my friend Tom. He told me that he, as a kid, would occasionally get sleep paralysis, and it
Oh,
sounds
man.
horrifying. Like
That
in the
sounds
show,
like
makes
the
it
worst thing
sound
ever.
horrifying. Like
Ugh.
I've had some pretty bad night terrors, so I don't know if they'd be scarier and worse than that. But I think I'd stick with my night terrors. I don't know.
Good old night
because
terrors.
like it's
Never
because at
failed me.
least you know as awful as things are in night terror, like you still feel like you have some sort of like control, if at least of yourself, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Whereas like that.
I also think paralysis, like you are living through it, whereas like
Yeah.
night terrors, you know you're gonna wake up from it. Like, I don't know.
Well, you don't necessarily in the moment.
Oh,
but,
okay.
yeah,
I've never had
that's
night
why
terrors,
they're
so I
so
don't know.
terrifying. But if you have paralysis, you should just take a panacea. I'm trying to think of a Final Fantasy item that cures paralysis.
Soft or a needle or
needle. Maybe it's needle. Soft
Is it
cures
needle?
stone.
well then
Chris, come on. What cures paralysis?
I think it's a needle.
yeah,
Needle?
needle. I think it's
Alright.
needle.
Or cast Asuna. One of those.
Yeah.
Only chumps use items.
I know.
Exactly. Who
That's
uses
how I
that?
approach video games. Only jumps use items. Phoenix Town? Nope. I mean, I'll wait till after the battle.
I'm gonna
Exactly.
It's
I'm
magic.
gonna scroll down to item.
It's magic or
Idiot.
nothing, man. Screw those items.
Exactly. I'm the exact same way.
What a great way to end our discussion about
I was waiting for someone to use their X-Men power to fight the ghosts. You know.
I'm glad they didn't do that though, because
the superhero team at the
it
end.
would have been pretty cheesy.
Luke's power is just to
I just
Do
drugs.
heroin.
I just remember like when they introduced Theo as the being able to see things when she touches. It was just like, oh my god! Like this was, I mean, a story as grounded as a story about ghosts haunting people could be up until that point, and you're just like, oh my god, we got mutants. We got mutants, everyone.
Yeah.
It's part of the Fox mutant universe.
This is part of that. What was that dark-ish one that they have coming out? What's it called? New Mutants or whatever. The New Mutants.
Oh yeah.
Oh
This,
yeah.
this is connected to that. I like to think.
It's confirmed. Here. You heard it here. It's confirmed. And it shares the same universe as Willow, too.
Also,
Have more to...
I was thinking at the end, I was like, lucky enough for Steve, vasectomies are reversible, so he could just go and get it reversed and have a kid.
I don't know what you're saying. Are you joking?
No, it's serious.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
are
you're
reversible.
right. They are reversible. That's what I'm saying.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, but I wasn't.
I know,
sure
but
if
he
you were
made
sarcastic.
like he made such a big deal about it. Like this is,
Oh.
I made the decision for her, and I feel
Oh.
like it's like you could
Oh,
just
I guess.
you could just reverse that,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, that's true. Everything worked out in the end.
Indeed,
Yeah.
it did. Theo threw away her gloves, and she will now start the Institute for.
She'll absorb Captain
Extraordinary.
Marvel's powers and be able to fly.
Yep.
Extraordinary Spooks. Institute for Extraordinary Spooks. No, that sounds racist. It's extraordinary spoops. I don't know.
Spoops. Cool. All right. Well, now have we got everything off our chest involving
so.
ghosts and ghouls?
But I do want to make a comment about those hidden ghosts, which are so hidden,
no,
so
we
hidden,
haven't all got everything off our chest.
so hidden that none of us actually knew they were there until someone told us they were there. And even then, I really never saw any. It's just like that dedication, right, to the plot itself and what the director wanted to craft, Mike Flanagan, right? Like, man, there's something to be said about that, right? Because he's like, I'm going to put these people in a ton of shots, and it's just like they're there. And according to like the cast, like every single one of those ghosts has like some sort of written background by the director or whatever, the writer.
That's cool.
So, and I mean that's crazy because there's a ton of them, but man. It was, I love stuff like that. Also with Castlevania, you know, like the wall chicken, stuff like that.
What if there's wall chicken in Haunted Hill House?
I mean, if there was wall chicken in the Hill House,
and they
I don't think it would ever be hungry.
Dracula whip, the vampire killer. I bet there was hidden ghosts in Castlevania too. Anyways, cool. All right. Well, we had an extra long bonus episode for everyone today. Got 2 things to talk that we talked about for the price of the one thing, which you didn't pay anything for, you freeloaders.
Don't insult our fan base.
I don't know what's coming up. We got some shows coming. Maybe we'll do Sabrina. Sounds like we want to do a Sabrina episode.
I do want to check out Sabrina. There's
movies are coming out.
I was going to say, there's a lot of Wreck-It Ralph 2 is real soon. I refuse to call it by its
Harry
other
Potter.
name.
It's not Harry Potter.
I won't watch that. There's that Spider-Man at the end of next month. There's Aquaman at the end of next month. There's probably a dozen freaking Oscar movies that are going to come out next month. Yeah,
we're going to be busy for the end of the year. None of this 3 weeks in between episodes anymore. That probably is not true.
We may do a Spider-Man episode for the video game at some point. I don't know.
Who knows? Anyways, well, if you're interested in listening to any of those episodes, go ahead and like us, or don't like us, just follow us. If you, for some reason, want to follow us without liking us, that'd be weird. If you don't like us, but still want to listen to us, feel free to do that on all the ways you can on the internets. And if you have other suggestions besides Sabrina, email us or just talk to us, because most likely we know who you are, and just you could talk to us in person. We're chatting if you're listening to this right now.
Just text us right now. Just
text us.
I think
you have my number.
He's
just
referring
text
to me and you, Chris.
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Ryan and Chris, can you just text me what you want to talk about? Anyways,
Opus 7. Let's talk about Opus 7. Let's break down our favorite cards. Let's do an episode about that. Break down our favorite new cards.
My favorite band card.
Thermidor.
Yeah, we're getting super esoteric.
Dang it, who's there for me to pick?
We're losing more and more audience as the longer we talk.
Yes.
All right, bye everyone. Thanks for tuning after the credits.
Happy
Thanksgiving. Bye.
Bye.
Say that.